Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Monster Mash. My name is Chris Doyle. I am the developer on the 5e side of the house at Goodman Games, and we are going to be talking with the Monster Mashers tonight. I love calling them Mashers because, like I said, most people might not be aware of this, but the Masher was a first edition monster in the Monster Manual. I love it. So anyway, I'm going to introduce all the fine folks that we have on our stream tonight in a moment, but I do have a couple of quick announcements. If you have not checked out our Kickstarter yet for Dungeon Denizens, please go check that out. We have a link in the chat right now. We are five backers away from 3,500. It would be amazing if we could get those 5 backers in the next hour. We will, I don't know, I can't promise anything, but we got to do something. I don't know. But anyway, it would be great if we can get 5 backers in the next hour. That would be awesome. Because that will unlock the last 2 slots for our 20 backer created monsters, which is really exciting. So let's go for that. Yes, I see people are already jumping in the chat, which is great. A couple of other announcements on Friday night. That is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. 20 Sides to Every Story, which we're going to hear about a little bit in a second here, is doing their second live playthrough of one of our 2-page dungeon delves. This is the DCC version. So for all you DCC fans out there, and I hear there's a lot of you, that will be catered specifically for you guys, and the name of the event is called the Portal Worms Burrow. So check that out. And then on Saturday morning at 12 noon Eastern Time, it's kind of the afternoon, but it's morning in California or on the West Coast. Mike and myself will be on an episode of the Saturday Morning RPG Show, hosted by Jordan. The PH is silent. And I'm really excited about this. I'm really hoping we're going to talk about some Saturday morning cartoons, and there's going to be talk about sugary cereals and all kinds of stuff like that. Pretty sure we're going to be there to be talking about Dungeon Denizens, but I'm sure we're going to go off the rails at some point and talk about sugary treats and cereals and stuff like that. So without further ado, let me introduce the fine folks that we have tonight. And I am just going to go in the order that I see them on my Zoom screen, which is probably nothing near the order that is on the Zoom screen that you guys can see. But we're going to open things up with Scott Moore. Good evening, Scott. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm doing well tonight, Chris.
Excellent. The first question I got to ask you is, where are you zooming in from tonight?
I am zooming in from Amherst, New York, which is just far enough outside of Buffalo that they don't associate us with losing sports teams.
Nice. What about like feet of snow? I mean, do you have feet of snow on the ground right now or no?
Right now, we don't, thankfully.
All
We had
right.
a pretty massive thaw, and we found one of the vehicles that our family owns after all the snow went away, so that was nice.
Wow.
It had converted into a 6-foot tall pile of rust, but it is still there.
All right. Awesome. And it's funny because I thought you had been zooming in from the caverns of Thracia. We'll get to
What would
that
give
in
you
a
that
second.
unplug that I did?
Yeah, looking at your awesome background there. Scott, how long have you been playing tabletop role-playing games?
I got in tabletop role-playing games around 1984, second year of high school. Started with the red and the original red and blue boxes, which were then
Okay.
gateways to the second red and blue and green and black and gold boxes.
Yep.
And then that was the golden age of TSR box sets. So that was those were gateways to Star Frontiers, Gamma Worlds, Indiana Jones, Marvel Superheroes, etc., etc.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And let's see, you've been working with Goodman Games for a couple of years now, and there's a couple of projects I know you're not allowed to talk about. But there's probably one pretty important one that you can talk about. So why don't you share a little bit of thumbnail of what you've been doing for the last almost 1 year?
I'm hoping I can talk about this one over here, because if not, I'll have to like cover it up.
That's the
Um,
one.
so about a
So
year ago, I started a 5e conversion of the classic Judges Guild Caverns of Thracia, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a lot of fun because it's essentially it's a campaign in an adventure. It is a lost city in the jungle or lost in the mountains. It's kind of not really detailed where it is in the original adventure. But beneath the city, there are several levels of caverns, and there are many plot hooks for adding additional stuff onto those underground levels, which I think the team working on it has chosen to take advantage of. And in addition to converting the adventure, we've added quite a bit of additional material to it as well.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Great. So, all right, we're going to get back to you in a second. We're going to move around to the next person on my screen, which is Rick. Rick, I always say Maffei, but apparently it's Maffei, right?
Maffei. But I've
Maffei.
heard
Wow.
everything, including Mafia, so it's all good.
But Maffei sounds so much more sophisticated and
Oh,
so
well,
much
then,
more, yeah. So, no, that's fine. So,
anything that'll raise my, profile is always welcome. So,
So, of course, nobody watching this show knows who Rick is. You've never
no.
seen him before on a stream with us, but
No.
Rick, where are you zooming in from?
I am zooming in from beautiful northern New Jersey, about 30 minutes outside of New York City.
Awesome, awesome. And there's no snow on the ground by you either, right?
No, it's
Yeah.
it's delightfully clear. I miss the snow, but my back does not. So yeah, I'll take a warm winter this time around.
All right. So, tell us a little bit about the Twitch show that you co-host with somebody who might or might not be on the stream as well.
Sure. The Twitch show I'm currently co-hosting with yours truly is Talking TSR, which has been going quite a while now. We're I don't know what episode we're approaching, but
44, I think.
we've got a few under our belt, and that's really a lot of fun because we get to dig into the old modules and the old adventures that we all kind of grew up with and really love. So that's it harkens me back to the good old days and kind of where I started role playing. So it's always a joy talking about that stuff.
Cool. Very, very cool. And when did you get your start in tabletop role-playing games, and how long have you been professionally engaged in the industry?
Oh boy. I started with tabletop role-playing games with D&D, AD&Ds to be specific, in the late 1970s. My first adventure was in Search of the Unknown, the classic B1. I personally used the Red Dragon box set, was sort of my beginner set, though I went through a lot of different versions of the rules. But yeah, that was where I started. I want to say 1978, but don't pin me down to it. I've been working in the industry for a while. My first kind of, I guess, professional published credit was an adventure in Dungeon magazine in I want to say 1994, and kind of been going on from there. And been working with Goodman Games for almost 18 years now, which still kind of shocks even me. Working on a whole bunch of different lines. So yeah, it's been a long, fun, strange journey.
Awesome. Cool. That's great. All right. We will get back to you in a moment. I'm going to move down to my lower left, which is Alex. Alex, why don't you introduce yourself to people? Uh-oh. Is he talking? It just froze. Uh-oh. All right. Can you hear us, Alex? Uh-oh. All right, we're gonna move on to Ben, and hopefully we will get Alex back. Wait, Alex, are you back? Or no, that was just a tease. Dramatic pause. Yep, dramatic pause. Okay, we're gonna move on to Ben. Ben, first of all, everybody meet Ben Hayward. So Ben, believe it or not, has actually been a part of Goodman Games for quite some time. But most of you folks probably haven't seen him until this past weekend.
That's right.
But he has been working behind the scenes on a lot of stuff for us as one of our editors. So first of all, Ben, where are you zooming in from tonight?
I am streaming into you from snowy Canada. So
Oh,
all that talk about snow. Oh, we have a lot. Like I'm a tall person. I'm 2 meters tall, which for in D&D rules, that's 6'7", and my snowbank between my driveway and my sidewalk and my street, where I have to pile it all, is taller than me.
whoa. Okay, so you are getting all the snow this year, and we're not. Okay.
Getting the exercise, let's say.
Okay. All right. So, awesome. And how long have you been playing tabletop role-playing games?
Oh my goodness. Like I grew up with it in such a way that this revised rule set, 1983 original D&D that basic set that came out alongside first edition was like something I was playing before I was reading. I was talking about this in my stream that I grew up, knowing the world through ability scores and alignment, thinking they were a real thing, thanks to influence my cousin and my brother. So, yeah, like I was the picture of the wizard in this rule book before I could read the word wizard.
Nice. Oh, that is awesome. And so, on this particular project, tell us a little bit about your role and the uniqueness of your role.
Oh my goodness, I've had my fingers well into these monsters in every way possible. I'm the lead 5th edition editor, touching everything except the DCC side of things, where they've got a great team working on it. So I oversaw the editing of some of our amazing other editors. David, William worked with Tim, gave us lots of great counsel on that, and of course yourself, Chris, and I liaison with a lot of the writers. And I have personally gone through every single monster, although not as a primary editor on all of them, but different stages and different roles.
Oh, excellent. That's great news. So let's see if we're going to try and move on to Alex again. Alex can apparently hear us, but he's going to try. Can you, I'm not hearing anything. All right, we might just have to pretend like Alex is, wait, maybe. I get moving pictures every once in a while. It's getting close. It's getting close. And now we're seeing frustrated looks on his face. All right, well, let's keep trying. While we're going on with the show, Alex, if you chime in and we start hearing you, we'll just stop and we'll throw it back over to you. So we'll just kind of move a little bit along on that. So yes, folks, we are at the whims of the internet, and that can always be tricky when we're zooming in from all different places. So all right, so I'm going to jump back up to Scott. So Scott, tell me a little bit about, first of all, so folks know Scott was one of our 5e writers that we recruited during our open call back in late 2020, early 2021. And his first assignment was a bunch of monsters. So why don't you pick one of your monsters and we will throw the artwork up and you can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, if you throw up the Bucca.
All right, let's do the Bucca. So, one of my favorites. Okay, so go ahead. Tell us a little bit about the Bucca. What is the Bucca? Where was your inspiration for the Bucca, and why a Bucca?
The Bucca was inspired by European folklore, and I kind of like the approach of not all monsters are things you're supposed to fight until they're dead and steal the treasure. There are a lot of D&D has a history of having a lot of fun monsters, like flumps, for example, that are just there to kind of take away the distraction from combat and be interesting and to give the GM a little fun as well. So the Bucca started off based on the brownie of folklore, which is a tiny fey creature that dwells in other people's homes. And due to its own kind of code of ethics, in exchange for its residence, and it will hide, in the woodwork or between the walls or something like that in a home, it provides services to the homeowner. And that could be either chores around the house. If the owner of the home happens to be a craftsman or an artisan of some sort, it might gain those skills and use those skills to help the homeowner complete their work or their livelihood. The thing is, they do not like to be seen. They don't even like to be acknowledged. So if you suspect you have a Bucca or a brownie living in your home, you do things like, oh, no one will ever finish this. It's a shame we have to leave out this half loaf of bread that no one's going to finish with this apple butter, and then go to bed, and in the morning it's gone, and all your cows have been milked, and your fields have been taken care of, and things like that. I originally based it off of the brownie of folklore, as I mentioned, and Chris, you and I went back and forth a little bit, and you suggested using the name Bucca, which already existed in earlier editions of D&D as a creature as well, if memory serves. And with the different variations of brownies and folklores and creatures like that, I threw in some traits, like I said, besides just kind of the stealth ability to hide in a home and the characteristic of wanting to help out around the home. It can also pick up some of the talents and some of the skills of the homeowner and take on those tasks when the homeowner is away.
Cool. That's awesome. So yeah, when you pitched the Bucca to me, I was instantly, I was like, yep, I'm taking this one. And I think I even told you at the time, it's because I actually put Bucca in Castle White Rock way back in the day, because I'm pretty sure there were Bucca in third edition. If there weren't, I was bringing them to third edition. I might have actually just used brownies or sprites too. I can't exactly recall. But I remember that's exactly, I had them in the inn and they kind of did stuff for you. So definitely the type of creature that you can kind of fool your PCs to thinking that the place might be haunted, or just something's not right, or somebody's watching you, or somebody's eavesdropping
It
on
can
you or
create
something. That
paranoia, and the characters don't
yeah,
know if they
yeah,
should be
it's
worried or not.
yes, definitely not something you need to be worried about with like a one hit die Fey, but that's like tiny size. But still, any of those little things that you can do to kind of keep your player characters guessing, and not exactly sure of what's going on. I think that's kind of the brilliant part of role-playing games, especially when you're all in the same room and you can kind of see people's faces and stuff like that, and you can kind of gauge what they think, and then you just deceive them, and then the next thing you know, they're going to be basically trying to find what's stalking them, what horrible undead creature is stalking them, and it's just a Bucca that wants to
It
mend
must be a
its
ghost because
clothes.
we don't see it.
Exactly. So, and now I know, always keep some extra apple butter with you,
There you
because I
go.
didn't know that was like an important thing previously. So all right, thanks for that. So let's do it real quick. And Alex, can you hear us, and can we hear you?
Hello.
Yes, we have Alex. Hello, we can hear you.
All right.
Awesome. All right, so
The
looks like we have
clouds
some,
must have parted.
yes, some stable internet. All right, Alex, welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
Why don't you introduce who you are and where you are zooming in from?
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I'm calling in from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, sort of central east Wisconsin, I suppose. Live here with my wife Emily and my future game master son, 13-month-old Arthur. So
Nice, excellent. And what occupies most of your spare time these days, as if most of the folks don't know who you are?
well, a lot of my time is spent kind of coordinating things over on the Twitch channel, 20 Sides to Every Story. We love Goodman games over there. We do a lot of right now we are doing Dark Tower. They're probably getting started here in a little bit. So they do that on Thursday nights. We ran Temple of Elemental Evil I think about a year ago, and everyone that played in that loved it so much. We're still living in that world, even though they've dealt with everything in the temple, but we just kept it going. And so great group of people. I think there's 6 of us that are GMing things, and then that keeps us pretty busy and on the air almost every night of the week now.
Nice.
So
Can you just give us a real quick thumbnail of how you wrapped up your Temple of Elemental Evil campaign, because this was fascinating. I love this story.
So I guess a little context is the way that we've been running like the original Adventures Reincarnated since Keep on the Borderlands we kind of do it. I don't know if you can really call it West Marches style, but it's sort of community style where we'll throw out signups and it might be different people every time. And so inevitably you end up with a different party every time you go out adventuring. And the OAR books are kind of perfect from that, because typically there's some kind of home base, and that kind of is the conduit between the safe zone and then they go out adventuring. You might group up with different people every time, right? So inevitably you've amassed tons of players, and I think in the temple, I think altogether we had maybe 40 or so people that had stepped foot in the game at some point, but I think we had like 16, 17, 18, something like that people towards the end. And so what we did, I can't hold a session with 18. Well, I guess they kind of did in the end, but we broke them up into little groups and they all got to do one of the nodes, and then it all came together. And the big final battle of Zuggit Moy, I had it where all 18 of those people ended up in a session together where I was just having they're popping in through the portal, so there's like a I just had to do it kind of like Zoom style, I guess, where like I was kind of the presenter and I'd pull in one person at a time to try to manage the chaos. It was a ton of fun. It was like I don't know, it was like a 10-hour game or something because
Yeah.
that's what it is. But it was a ton of fun. It was a blast.
That's so awesome. That was I mean, I watched part of it. It was fascinating. I was getting sucked into it. Watching you, the way you were pulling in every round, you were like pulling in additional people and all that. And some more of those people were literally waiting for hours in a Zoom waiting room, waiting to get the chance to get
It's
into the
dedication.
finale. Yeah, which is crazy. So, but awesome at the same time too. So, great. Well, thanks for stopping by tonight. And again, thanks for everything that you guys are doing for us with these live playthroughs and everything. If you guys are not familiar with 20 Sides Every Story, go check out their Twitch channel. They do some great content, and it's fascinating to watch everything. And then they put everything up on YouTube afterwards, which is usually how I consume it. So but anyway, they do some great stuff. So thank you, sir, for everything that you do. So okay, so let's see, where was I? All right, so we finished up on the Bucca, so now let's move on over to Rick. Rick, why don't you tell us something a little bit about one of the monsters that you created, and we will toss up the artwork for that.
Sure. Why don't we put up the artwork if we could for the Emerald Wanderer?
Okay. You guys probably have never seen this artwork, so
exactly. I feel like he's sort of become the unofficial mascot of the
He is.
advertising
It
campaign
is.
at this point. So I felt I had to talk about him.
Yep.
As we were kind of discussing in the green room before we went live, I love horror movies.
It's
So
the
this
Emerald
guy,
Room, by the way, but no.
the Emerald, there we go.
Yeah.
Even better. I love horror movies. Chris knows this. So although I love basing things on mythology, this guy I basically pulled straight out of my head, and it was just pure horror movie inspiration. In the case of this fellow, I incorporated several movies inspired this guy. There was an early Freddy Krueger movie in which Freddy Krueger pulls up his shirt and you see on his chest, these screaming faces of souls he has absorbed or victims or something along that line. That made a mark on me. There was a later movie called Jeepers Creepers that featured a sort of vampire-like creature that would consume parts of people, that would essentially look at you and decided it wanted your eyes or wanted your tongue or wanted something, and it would take that, eat that, and incorporate it into itself. I thought that was a cool concept. And lastly, there's a much newer movie, great horror movie called It Follows, about a creature that just slowly but relentlessly stalks its prey, which is kind of a very frightening concept of just something relentlessly tracking you. So I kind of rolled them all into one, and I envisioned a creature that would basically stalk the underground, a very sort of enigmatic creature that the DM could kind of play with in a lot of different ways. And essentially it starts tracking you, and it settles on a particular person as a victim. And if it eventually confronts you and you engage with it, it can drain your life force and essentially imprison you inside it temporarily, or completely consume your life energy if you're unfortunate. And hence the faces on the chest were, of the victims. And one of the abilities it has, in addition to its normal attacks, is for a period of time, it retains the last one or two abilities from victims it's absorbed. Racial abilities, things of that nature. So if, let's say, the last thing it's consumed is a dragonborn, it might be able to breathe fire then when it runs into you, and it will have maybe the last two abilities. And we've even gone as far as to provide a chart for the DM to roll on next to the entry for this monster. That way, if the DM's on the fly and he wants to, settle on one or two abilities that the creature has when it's encountered, they can just roll on that table. And I just thought that was fun. It gives a little bit of unpredictability to the creature because you're just not sure what abilities it will currently have. And it can also transform its appearance into those last victims as well. So it could also appear as that dragonborn while it's stalking you or engaging with you. So yeah, I just thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a creature that's a little difficult, a CR10 creature, and a little bit of unpredictability that the DM can have some fun with.
Well, that's cool, and that stolen ability trait is really what kind of sold us on that concept, because that part was good. And I think it might have, I can't remember if it was our suggestion to actually add the table in there or if that was your suggestion or not. But that's what really kind of put it over the top. It was really cool. The concept is really cool that while you're fighting it, it could actually start gaining some of the abilities that you have. But it was also really cool, like you said, that we can include a random table that so that when you encounter it, it might already have a couple of those abilities, and it could be completely different. And it's almost like if you run into this one, it's going to have these abilities, but if you run into it again, it's going to have completely different abilities. And that versatility at the game table is something that really attracted us to the design. And clearly we like the way the artwork worked out, because we put that on there. That was probably all Joe picking that was going to be the face of the book and the face of the Kickstarter and everything, and the face of most of the ads, I think, that have gone out on Facebook and everything. So I love that. Yes. And Shades of Icarus, welcome, good night, good evening to you. And yes, every monster inspires an adventure. That is so true. I think that's if no other reason, when you're flipping through the pages of all 500 of these, hopefully this generates 500 ideas, at least 500 ideas for different adventures. And that is truly the hallmark of an awesome monster design, when you read that monster and he just goes to different places, like right off the bat. And some really evocative designs can really help that along. So all right, so we are going to jump down to Ben. And Ben, I think before we talk about your creature, let's talk a little bit about the editing process, because you didn't actually design too many creatures, but we saved you for a really big one, and that's a really big one. So let's talk a little bit about the editing process. So can you kind of walk us through, and I know this was, we started this years ago, but kind of like how we started, how we approached something like this. I mean, that was probably the hardest part, was like 500 of something, and then how are we going to get through this? So can you maybe kind of walk us through a little bit about the early stages of that, and the need for a spreadsheet to kind of wrangle that all together?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, on a lot of projects, right? Ideally, at different stages, you're going to have one editor take it cover to cover, make sure that and the consistency is met through that one editor's vision. Because there will be little differences. But when you've got 500 monsters, averaging, okay, we wanted to try and make them short, but Chris kept telling everyone, add tables, add sidebars, add more. So averaging upwards of 800, 900 words a monster, even sometimes. It was a Herculean task if we were going to just send it to someone's desk, and they would have sat with it for 2 years or something. So we said, we need a spreadsheet. We need to put them all together. We need checkboxes. We need and this was part of this was going to prepare the type of information, already have it digitized and ready for the index for the book, the sorting creatures by CR. And for those of you who caught Chris's stream there, it has that allowed Chris to pull that kind of comparative information to see what the different monsters were and what they were like. But we needed to do it specifically to track the editing, and so discussing the strategy with Chris there, we had the editors open funnel or open call at the same time as the monsters writers open call was happening, and we got a host of great editors that submitted. Some were more talented in their sort of like ability to edit all forms of language. Other ones are real rules experts. But of course, we needed a blend of those two skills, and we ended up with a great team. William Fisher, myself, and David, who you saw in the Lost Monster Masters stream. And what we did was we had a 2-stage editing process. So the 500 monsters got cut down the middle. We looked at who would be the best editor to tackle each one, and I signed them off. And then I kind of made I set them on their way. I looked over their shoulder as they did it, and I checked their work at the end. So they each had half the monsters roughly, and then I had all 500 and consolidating it and bringing it together. And of course, Chris then had my back and oversaw what I was doing, and was you were working on other projects at the same time, but we had the Discord going, we had monthly meetings, and you jump in and this monster has 2 sidebars. Can we fit that? Or this monster could use a sidebar because there's a mention of a magic item, but there's a room for one, stuff like that, and we could make sure to fit it in. And as one of the elements of the process was is we have editors saw that a monster needed playtesting, we'd kick it for playtesting. If we saw that it needed design revision, we'd kick it for design revision. But one component of that is if we think that it needs design revision, we're already deep in the monster. You know, we're balancing in our minds, we're imagining the combat playing out. So if we have a revision suggestion, it's the most expedient way is for us to make a little note of it while we're deep into it, and then Chris can oversee that and approve it or that kind of change. So we as editors, we're kind of able to do a design suggestion pass as well. Well, this monster could use an extra attack, and since I'm so in the thick of the monster, I can see that really not a breath weapon. It needs some sort of earth tremor or something like that. Make a note to that to Chris. Chris would say, "Oh yeah, you can draft that earth tremor." Chris would say, "Oh, I've got an idea for that," and he'd take it over. That sort of thing. So that was the process that we went through. Literally all 500 plus monsters.
Exactly. And to see all that, what Ben just described to you, we've got an update coming later on in the campaign that's going to actually pull one of the monsters as an example, so you can kind of see the evolution of where it started from. And then as it got along through the process, as it was like literally being passed from like person to person to person, the tweaks that were made and the tweaks that were not made, even though they were suggested, and why. And we kind of did a whole little thing on it and everything. And imagine, yeah, now again, not all 500 monsters needed all of the changes that we did. It, many of them were good to go, but a lot of them needed some extra touches here and there, because again, we were trying to, our goal going into this has always been, we want cool monsters. And it's like, if somebody submits a monster and it's, it's a 7 out of a 10, well, how do we make it an 8 or a 9 out of 10? They're not all going to be 10 out of 10s, but like we can make them a little bit better. And it could be a sidebar, a magic item. It could be a little bit more evocative lore, or it could be some kind of, reworking some of those abilities to make them kind of sing a little bit better. So that was the whole process. And Ben, I will give you, a lot of the credit. You're the one that created the original spreadsheet and got that kind of got that going. The spreadsheet that now is the spreadsheet that rules them all. We've added on it and added on it, and since then you haven't even seen what I've done to it since then. I've since downloaded it on my machine, and I'm like actually messing with it more for the pawns and stuff like that, and for the 2-page delves and all these other different things and everything. But so I have to thank you for your laying the groundwork for us to just keep adding and adding things on, for doing that. And I'm happy to report that the next project that Ben is working on, which we're not allowed to talk about yet, involves another large spreadsheet. so we're right back to where we're at again, with managing a team and everything. So thank you. Thanks for enlightening us with all that information. We're going to move right along. We're going to jump back to Alex if his internet's going to let us jump to him to do a sound check. You good there, Alex?
Check 1 2.
All right, we're good.
Good.
All right, cool. So Alex, why don't you tell us about one of your 2 monsters that you've created?
Yeah, maybe we'll start with the portal worm.
Okay.
Which I believe might be the first one that I did. I think that was the one I submitted for the project.
I think it was, yeah. When we did I believe that was the very first one that you did. So
yeah, so I always like creatures that have maybe some tie to like why are things in the game the way they are. And so I think the seed for creating the portal worm was kind of like, there are all these massive labyrinths. Have they all been created by, dwarves or, whatever labor was being used to do that? And I was like, maybe there's a better way. And so the portal worm is kind of like that idea. It was maybe invented or bred from different worm-like creatures to create this thing that could maybe tunnel and sort of be capable of creating the subterranean layers that wizards play around in or whatever. And so in creating this, it's only the kind of thing that maybe a wizard could think up, that it needs to not only be able to burrow and create tunnels, but deposit that somewhere. And so the portal worm is basically, I think the idea or the base of it kind of started with something that probably looks akin to like a purple worm, but it's got kind of a rusty, ruddy hide, plated, and huge. I mean, it's huge size, but its mouth is ringed with all these teeth that kind of grind up and eat up the stone. and it's been sort of magically enhanced to suck up and pull all the debris and dirt and send it somewhere else. And so each portal worm is attuned to some kind of a demi-plane where all of the stuff that it eats gets deposited. And
including PCs, right?
hopefully some PCs would end up getting deposited in whatever the demi layer or the demi plane is, and that could be the start of a whole new campaign if that were to happen. You know, they could find themselves in some other world that maybe the DM gets bored with the game that they're playing, drop a portal worm in, send them somewhere else.
I'm thinking it could also be the end of a campaign too.
It's true too.
I mean, I mean, if you're like, yeah, this campaign's just got to stop.
Yeah.
So it's like portal worm to the rescue. Oh, that's awesome. So, I love that. It's an interesting design. I think it plays really, really nicely on the DCC side and the 5e side. I think it's got just enough weirdness for the DCC folks. Yeah, I think, you know, it definitely works for both. So it was definitely when I remember we saw your original concept, we were like, oh yeah, that's definitely the one. I mean, if there's anything that we need in the game, is we need more big, huge worms that can, you know, send people to extra dimensional spaces. So awesome. That's so very, very cool. And that is that right, correct? The portal worm is the theme of tomorrow night's adventure. Not that anybody's watching that this would spoil anything. So
It is, and actually all the players that I have coming into it, like they've all either play tested the portal worm or some of them
okay.
have even used it themselves in their game. I gave it to them to like, here, you guys play test and see what you come
Nice.
up with. So they all know that part of what, but that's the thing with the portal worm is like, it's a big question mark. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you still don't know exactly what could be inside of it. So
Yeah. Oh, that's what's good. That's what's great. And I love it. I mean, that is beautiful. Yeah, Shade of Icarus, he's like, yep, yep. He's portal worms will be part of his silly world very, very soon. Yes, yes. That is the best. Okay, before we get back to some more monster discussion, quick update. We are a mere 3 backers away from 3,500. We have about 20 minutes to go on the show. This would be amazing if we could go to 3,500 backers during the show would be so, so cool. I promise if we do, I will interrupt people in the middle of talking to give a shout out to the backers and everything. So actually I might even be able to call out who the backer is. But anyway, so let's get back to our regularly scheduled show. So we're going to jump it back on up to Scott. And Scott, why don't you tell us about the another one of your creatures that you would like to crow triumphantly about?
The other one, if you want to throw up the picture for the Banastrum,
Okay.
and it kind of looks like Bone Storm, but harkening back to the early days of D&D where everybody mispronounced the monsters to whatever they thought it was, and it wasn't until years later on the internet we actually figured out, you know, is it Dro? Is it you know,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
that's Atiug? Oh, okay. I never would have pronounced it that way. Let Boulay. The Banastrum is inspired by the chaos in nature of things like water spouts and tornadoes, and I was kind of fascinated by the whole kind of controlled cylinder of chaos that occurs in nature, and we see it in D&D and things like water elementals and air elementals and things like that, which are threatening and dangerous. But I wanted to make it just slightly more creepy, just enough to creep out people at the table a little bit to see something different. So it's essentially a spinning cylindrical storm of bones and bone fragments and teeth of all different sorts of creatures of all different sorts of sizes. Unlike, you know, a tornado or a water spout where you're taking a certain type of damage, you never know what sort of fragments of bone are going to hit you. So it can do bludgeoning, it can do slashing, it can do piercing, depending on what pieces are whipping by and slicing into you. It is a CR, I believe it's CR10. Yeah, CR10 creature. It is obviously not natural. It is an aberration, and they are frequently found serving as guardians over people, places, or things. And to that point, they can be summoned. And if you would like your very own Banastrum, there is a spell included that allows a spellcaster to summon one of these creatures and keep it under their or assign it a guardianship of something.
Nice. And that's what's cool about what we were trying to do with this book. So not only do we have 500 plus monsters in here, but we always tried to give, a magic item or a piece of treasure or something that was interesting, or even if it was just like an interesting little sidebar on something, a spell, a new spell. We tried to do that to kind of add those extra little crunchy bits to kind of round out the book and everything and kind of make it cool. Some of the monsters have like minions and stuff that they work with, so it might be like, oh well, this monster typically hangs out with this guy, go check this guy out and the P chapter or something like that. So very, very cool. So basically what you're trying to say, it's like a whirlwind attack, but shards of bone and all kinds of stuff like that you get captured. That's horrifying.
Flying bites and flying bones, and
yeah,
yes.
that's really cool. I love that. And it's an aberration though. It's not undead.
Correct. It's an aberration.
Wow. Okay.
And even the bones are not easily identifiable as belonging to any one type of creature.
Okay.
They might resemble bones of many different creatures, including some that maybe the party hasn't even encountered or even seen anything like before. So it's completely an aberration, although it's definitely looks and feels like bone fragments are flying around you.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. We are going to move over to Rick. And Rick, tell us about another one of your monsters.
Sure. Why don't we put up the picture of the Mage Maelstrom? This is another sort of homegrown baddie. Very rare form of undead that is created where a spellcaster is basically caught in a violent magical explosion, and for reasons such as simply an indomitable will to live, continues on as an unusual form of undead. So essentially the creature presents itself as a swirling mass of energy. So it lacks a physical form. It's basically, you see a swirling mass of gas and lightning and fire and just swirling about in the air. Many of these undead created in this way, they're always racked in pain. Many of them have lost their minds, so some are insane, some retain some intelligence, some don't. But invariably they're hostile toward the living, and they incorporate a whole host of different attacks. I think, growing up with D&D, one of the creatures I always loved was the Beholder. I always loved all those different eye stalk attacks. I thought that was the coolest thing, all those different attacks. And I guess the problem with the Beholder is so many people haven't fought them or haven't encountered them in D&D because it's just such a high level baddie. But I love all those eye attacks, and then the fact that the DM could even roll on that, roll randomly to see what I said. I have to do something like that. So the Mage Maelstrom presents a lower level challenge, still definitely tough, but not at the level of the Beholder. So hopefully you'll see a little more play at the table. And it incorporates a whole bunch of different attacks. So it might hit you with fire, it might hit you with lightning, it might hit you with a fear blast or a paralyzing blast. So it can really present a considerable challenge for parties, quite a handful.
Yeah, that was definitely the appeal when you pitched that, was that variable spell blast basically ability where, like you said, you can be hit with necrotic damage one round and then fire the next round in cold. I mean, there's again nothing better to confound players who think they've seen it all and like, oh, this guy's got a fire blast, we can take care of that, that's not a problem at all. And in the next round it's a cold blast, and in the round after that it's something completely different, and then the next thing you know, you really have them on your toes like a Beholder. I remember the very first time when I encountered a Beholder way back in the day. We were like, we never even saw it. We were just in this huge pillared temple or whatever, and there were just eye beams coming at us, and they were like hitting us and doing completely different things. And like, it took us probably a half hour to even figure out, oh my gosh, we're fighting a Beholder, because we never saw it. And it was like, it freaked us out, because it's one thing to always get hit by a fire blast every single round. You're like, okay, I got it. And sometimes in especially in 5e, that can certainly happen when you've got those cantrips where it can just be like firebolt, 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 firebolt. I mean, it's great that a spellcaster can do that every round, but it is kind of boring after a while. So it's like having something like this really kind of mix it up is oh, chef's kiss. It's perfect. It just adds right to it and everything. So cool. So thank you for that. We are getting, I think we got another backer doing a quick update here, waiting for it to refresh. We're 2 backers away. We're 2 backers away, people. Come on, there has to be 2 people. Well, maybe there isn't 2 people that are watching this show that haven't backed. They probably all have, but we just need 2 backers in about 15 minutes. It's going to come right down to it, I can tell. Okay. We are going to jump back to Alex, I think, and he's going to tell us about another one of his monsters. What do you got for us?
So the next one that I'll share is the Slag Coat.
Nice.
So the Slag Coat, I think, is sort of a tragic representation of the kind of the story or the idea of the kind of the social stratification of giants. And so it kind of started with the idea what it would kind of the relationship between the fire giants, or is kind of regarded as maybe kind of in the middle, maybe they're always trying to climb that ladder, and the hill giants, which are typically kind of at the bottom of the hierarchy. And so yeah, the idea of the Slag Coat is that it's a hill giant that has been duped by fire giants to believe that it could be maybe in, initiated into the fire giants clan, or their social status could be elevated if only they went through this ritual that the fire giants shaman is going to preside over. And so they literally get baptized in magma, which of course kills them instantly, and they are then kind of basically go through this ritual that is led by the shaman, that very slowly over time they start to transform, and their body, their essence inside that hardened shell, they go through a transformation that makes them undead. But now they've got this obsidian shell on them, that if you were to sunder it, will release this noxious gas that's going to blast right into the face of the melee that's trying to deal with it. Its attacks are further, have a little bit of a kind of necrotic disease. They're very sharp, and they can wound you to the point that the only thing that can really heal the wounds of the Slag Coat is magical healing. And so in the midst of the battle, that's if multiple party members are getting attacked by this thing, that's keeping the healer quite busy. So it's a perfect frontline fighter for the fire giants who don't want to put their own at risk.
Cool. And I really love your backstory on they're created during like an elaborate ritual, and the whole fact of like, duping them, and it's like, hey, you can serve a higher purpose if you join us. And it's like, yeah, we didn't mention the part that you're gonna die and you're gonna, be an undead servant for the rest of the time. But it's still it is a higher purpose if you think about it. So definitely love that concept. Love the name. The name is just, it's, in my opinion, Slag Coat it just feels like an old school kind of a monster name. I mean, you think about it, if you ever stop and think about like Rust Beast, Rust Monster, Rust Beast, whatever. It's like Rust Monster is not a particularly awesome name, but it's like, but we know them as Rust Monsters, and we probably remember them more than the Yugs, or however we pronounce them. But like Slag Coat though, just I saw that written on a page, Slag Coat, and I'm like, I want to find out more about that because that sounds really, really, really freaking cool. So cool. So thanks Alex. That's awesome. And that was, and correct, the Slag Coat was the main theme of the 5e live playthrough of the 2-page delve last week, correct?
Yeah, it was. Basically the delve was going into the environment in which the Slag Coats get created. So there's a bunch of kilns basically laid up in this chamber where the the lava pool is located, and unfortunately for the party, two of them were unlocked and ready to go, and so they had a lot of fun with it. The comment that they were all saying at the end was like, this is scary, like this is a scary monster, like you don't really I think it's kind of a thing that people say that high level D&D play like isn't it's too easy, or you just steamroll everything. They weren't saying that at the end, and so it made them rethink their tactics, right? Because like if melee is out of the question because it's literally you're dealing damage to yourself every time you're sitting next to it and trying to chip away at it. Our barbarian at some point had put a rope around their sword and was just like trying to create an improvised flail, basically, so that they didn't have to stand next to it. So that was really cool to just see them, try to deal with the puzzle of there's a monster, I don't know how it works, but every round I'm learning something new. I'm going to change my tactics to try to survive this thing.
So, very, very cool. So that's awesome. Thanks to the history professor for backing. We are still not quite there. We are one backer away, one backer. So there can only be one, and I'm lingering on the page here. Okay, it's not coming yet. So we're gonna move on and keep going. But we've got about 10 minutes, not quite 10 minutes to get one more backer. Come on, it'd be so cool if this happened. Well, you can even cancel your pledge right after the show ends. I'd be okay with that, just so that we get to that nice round number. I'm a big fan of nice round numbers. I don't want to end the show on $34.99, and it'd be cool too. I mean, we're talking about monsters. It'd be cool to have 2 more backer slots opened up on the show. That would be amazing, and the last 2 I might add. So cool. So we're gonna jump back down to Ben, and Ben is gonna tell us about the biggest monster in this book. Maybe it is actually the biggest monster too, but it's certainly got a couple of other things going for it. And I'm gonna actually ask you to pronounce its name, because there's like I don't even know where to start with that name.
Yes,
so give us the pronunciation.
No, of course. If people watching this haven't backed, this is the reason they have to back. This is this is our beast to compete with the Tarask, to compete with the aspect of Tiamat. It is our CR30. It is
CR30 people.
Yeah,
30.
Chris, I'll get to the name. You and I were looking at the spreadsheet and looking at how close we were to having a monster from every CR. And I said, my group that's been playing for a very long time now, I need to create like for a kind of just a subplot. I'm like, I need to create a absurdly powerful aberration on par with like a Cthulhu style being. How about that could be a CR? I was thinking CR 29. What do you think? And Chris said, make it 30.
Yeah.
Which I just love to hear. And so inspired a bit by Cthulhu. It has a name without vowels, which as Scott was saying, lends itself to ridiculous pronunciations, as your characters in the story will have a difficulty with some weird runic name, but it's Quithignes is how I've been pronouncing it, Quithignes, because there's Q's and N's and Z's, and we are keeping this art a secret until the book, to see the CR30 monster. But I will tell you a little bit about its genesis. And Rick, I don't think you know this, but it all started because of the Secrets of Mistcutter Isle, actually. Your adventure, CR level 5 adventure. My party was, this is when I was editing it, so I was playtesting the Secrets of Mistcutter Isle, and my party was down in the depths of the Isle, and you just had this line there, and this is hopefully not a spoiler, but you had this great line when they pick up a medallion of magical medallion, and I'll read the line. It says, all present immediately have a vision of a tremendous tentacled shape that stirs from its slumber in the shadowy depths. The vision is cloudy, but there is a glimpse of many uncurling tentacles and a great bulbous head ringed with a crown of horns. And I had a warlock of the Great Old One in my party who was specifically a cryptozoologist studying aberrations that latched on to that one line in your adventure that I read aloud. And so we needed this villain to eventually emerge. And they did as a CR 30, which was a playtest of a session. It was absurd. To tell you a little bit about it, for those watching, we had a lot no, I shouldn't say a lot. We have the perfect amount of sort of 2-page demon lords, and a lot of our CR 20s and above are also some of our dragons that have multiple entries. And this is the monster to defeat them all. It is kind of like a standalone beast in a way. And I thought, how can we make an elegant, almost 1-page entry? It ended up being 2 pages with a minion and a good adventure sidebar, but that's besides the point. Don't think we have time to get into the minions, but I thought, how can I make this kind of elegant single-page CR30 monster that will be entirely unforgettable at the battlefield? And it is the 6-horned worm who dwells below, and it appears kind of like a reverse Hydra. It is at first just one great oily black tentacle that shimmers with like the mauve and turquoise of exploding galaxies. But like a reverse Hydra, it as it strikes for the party, it generates additional great tentacles that tear into the world. And the legends say that it is, kind of trapped down below, as in your awakening down below in the adventure text. But to it, the earth is actually like a sphere, an earthen sphere that it's trying to get into by like a cat with a toy trying to plunge its claws into it. And so as the party fights it, they need to beat back each of these tentacles, because if all 6 make it onto the battlefield at once, it has a reaction attack to rip asunder the world, dealing 10d10 force damage per round to all creatures within 240 feet until either it or the world is destroyed. And this is the CR30 entity that you'll have to back the book to get to see the artwork. And it can take on the Trask, I assure you.
Yes, I do apologize. We do not have the artwork for that yet. But that is it's fascinating. We were actually talking about some of the pieces of art for this book. We were actually thinking of, it's like, that we should probably have a couple of like full page pieces of art or something. Just a few scattered through the book and everything. And this would definitely be one of them that would be worth it. And CR30, people, CR30, that's got a one shot written all over it, that if you've never done something like that before. I know when we played Crypt of the Devil Lich a couple of years ago, and people were using 15th level PCs. Just a lot of people don't do high level gaming like that, and it's a completely different experience. It's unfortunately, it's very stressful for the game master. There's like a lot going on, and I see a lot of heads nodding. Exactly, it's like it's one thing to run first level characters through something. It's bad enough, but like you start amping it up where you've got 15th level characters and they just have all these things that they can do, and it's just like the combats can be a slog just because of all the stuff going on. But at the end of it, though, just like Alex when he finished off the Temple of Elemental Evil, it's just like the end of it is like you're exhausted, but it's awesome, and you're just like, it's like, that was like great. When are we ever going to do something like that again? And that's what's going to be fascinating. So let me take a quick look. Fingers crossed. Come on, refresh. Come on, one more backer. We just need. All right, we're not leaving until we get another. No, we're not going to do that. So, because that would curse us. But all right, come on. We have a couple more minutes left to get one more backer. We got to be able to do this. So cool. So that about puts a bow on another episode of Monster Mash for everything. I do want to thank Rick, Alex, Scott, and Ben for taking time out of their schedules on this Thursday evening to join us. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed both of these Monster Mash episodes that we've done, and had a little bit of a chance to kind of get to know the people that have created these monsters with loving care. Is it really loving care, though, if they're out to create a CR30 creature to kill your characters? Maybe not. But anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the stories about how some of the monsters came to be, the inspirations, and then some of the changes that went through it. It's awesome. I vaguely remember the story about Miss Cutter Island now. But I was just like, I totally forgot about that. And I'm like, I didn't plan on having Rick and Ben both on the same screen. It just actually worked out that schedules worked that way. So that was pretty awesome. So I wanted, before we jump off here, I'm also lingering a little bit so that we can get an extra backer. A couple of other quick announcements on some other shows coming up. So if you really liked the Monster Mash shows, next Thursday, that is the 16th, special time 5 p.m. we are doing a special DCC RPG themed Monster Mash where you're going to get a chance to meet some of the folks that worked on the DCC version of the book. Which reminds me, there was a question in the chat asking if the book was going to have 5e stats and DCC stats for each monster. No, there will be two separate books. One book will be a 5e book, and the other book will be a DCC book. But we do have a pledge level in there. If you want both of them, you can get both of them. And I hear we're looking for another backer, so that would be like a win-win right there. So check that out next week, Saturday. Don't forget, tomorrow night we have 20 sides to every story. Alex and his crew. Alex, are you actually going to be running it, or is it one of your crew?
It'll be me. I'll be running this one.
Awesome. So if you guys want to see Alex running a DCC adventure featuring the Portal Worm tomorrow night, please check out 20 sides to every story and the gang over there. And finally, on Sunday night, Rick and I will be back for our regular scheduled Talking TSR show. We are taking a break from talking old classic TSR adventures, and we're going to actually talk about monster movies. And this is funny as heck that we're doing this. I didn't even realize that the Oscar Awards will be going on while we're talking about our top favorite monster movies. So normally you would think that you know, we would have planned that months in advance, but nope, we just fell into that one. So you know, that's the way we roll and everything. So so if you guys want to have, that should be a really fun show. It should really be kind of a jog down memory lane. And we're going to talk about, you know, some of our the old movies and new movies that have inspired us, monsters, and we're just going to talk monsters in general and just kind of have a good time. So yeah, it'll be a little bit different, but we want to do something for a little bit of a Dungeon Denizens theme for that show. So, and then we promise our next episode after that, we'll be right back at it and talking and doing classic adventures and everything. Also want to do a shout out. I believe it's 2 weeks from tonight. Gary Con will be kicking off on Thursday, and a bunch, including myself, a bunch of the Goodman Games gang will be there. So if you guys are planning on coming to Gary Con, please come over to our booth, check us out, talk to us. It'll be a couple of days after this Kickstarter is ended, so we will be all exhausted and trying to rest up at a convention, which is not going to go well, I might add. And one more check here on the Kickstarter, waiting for it to refresh. We are so close. Come on. It's not going to happen. Oh, it was so close. So
Chris, if you want to stretch it out 20 seconds, I can plug my my stream on Sunday.
Oh yes, definitely throw it in there. But I forgot. That's right.
Yeah,
you have
no
another.
problem.
You did your premiere episode on this past Sunday. Yes, tell us about your episode on this Sunday.
Yeah, so I'm hosting Session Prep on the Goodman Games Twitch channel. We had my inaugural episode last Sunday. It's going to be odd Sundays, but in the spirit of monsters, I'm doing it again this Sunday at 4 Eastern. Last Sunday we looked at how to make your monsters more memorable at the table, and it's a mesh of kind of general GMing advice and let me help prepare your session for you. So if you show up live and come with questions, then I'll answer them, and if you watch it and rerun later, we've got great GMing tips there from me and from audience members. And on this Sunday, we might even be making a monster live for the players, of the people in the chat, as we put together a monster in the stream. So hope to see you there Sunday at 4 on the Goodman Twitch channel.
Cool. And that's 4 p.m. Eastern time?
That's right.
All right. Awesome. So cool. Thanks a lot for that. So great. All right. So with that said, and still lingering and still seeing 3,499, so close, so close. That's okay. As soon as we sign off, I'm sure we're going to get that 3,500th backer. It'll be fine. So again, thank you for my wonderful participants in tonight's Monster Mash, and I will see you guys in a couple of days on Talking TSR. And with that, everybody have a great night.
Good night.
Bye.